I really like to make sure people understand that as a surrogate, we are not giving the baby up, we're giving the baby back.
Most surrogates, they don't go into it for the money because it's just not worth it, honestly.
Doing all of the initial paperwork and the screenings and the home visits, a month of hormones before the pregnancy, and then 3 months of injections when you're actually pregnant to stay pregnant. And then that doesn't even account for the birth and then those 6 weeks postpartum after. If you divide the amount of money that a traditional surrogate gets, it comes out to be like less than minimum wage. So if you're looking for money, it's a lot easier to go to McDonald's and get a part-time job.
Surrogates only get a portion of what you're paying. Because if you go through an agency, you're paying the agency to find your surrogate. You're paying the agency to set up appointments.
I've been in the hospital for a month during one of my pregnancies. I've had C-sections. It is honestly not worth the money. However, your family gives up a lot during a pregnancy, and even during the part before the pregnancy. Without the compensation to get them on board, sometimes it's a little more difficult. My ex-husband would never have agreed to be so understanding had he not had some benefit, and for him the benefit was the money. My husband at the time, his grandmother said, "So you're gonna let her sleep with another man?" So that was an interesting explanation for Grandma to understand that no, that was not gonna happen, that everything was gonna happen in a doctor's office. I was not gonna have relations with anyone else. And it took her a while to understand the concept.
None of the babies that I have ever carried have been genetically linked to me. There's either been an egg donor or the egg from the intended mother, which gets fertilized with the husband or donor sperm, and then once the embryo is created, they put it inside of me. So I'm literally a house. I'm just carrying the baby until it's ready to be born.
What do I love about being pregnant? I love like the baby just growing and kicking, and you just knowing that you're creating a whole new life. Someone that could become president, someone that could, cure cancer.
Just to be able to carry a child, to know that there is a living human being inside of you whose sole source of life and basically survival is contingent upon yourself, it's incredible. When they say, you have that pregnancy glow, it's definitely real.
I'm very lucky and I'm blessed. My body just likes being pregnant. I've had relatively easy pregnancies. I won't say they've been a cakewalk. I've had nausea, I've had vomiting, I've had an episode of preeclampsia that required an induction. But overall, I know how many women out there would kill to have that first trimester heartburn, so I don't take it for granted.
It is such an awesome feeling, and when it's your own children, it's a different feeling, equally awesome, just different. When you're pregnant with a surrogate baby, your end goal is to see that baby go home with their parents. When that happens, it is such an amazing accomplishment. I can't even describe it. It's just something that if you've ever even thought about becoming a surrogate, you should look into.
I never felt that emotional attachment while carrying or even afterwards. And I think it's because I know going into it, I'm doing this for someone else. I'm entering into this agreement, I am doing this to help out another couple. Then while I'm pregnant, I don't refer to it as a pregnancy, it's always the surrogacy. So it's almost like I somewhat depersonalize the experience.
I never considered the baby my baby. Whenever I talk to the parents, I'm like, okay, your baby was doing this today, your baby was doing that today.
I have 2 of my own children, and they do require that you have at least one of your own children before you become a surrogate, mostly so that you can know what you're getting into before you sign up for it, but also so that the doctors can be aware of how your body is pregnant.
I have 4 of my own. When I started, my children were a little bit younger, and basically when I came home from the hospital, they just said to me, "Mommy, you're not fat anymore." So really, I don't think they really got the whole concept.
For surrogacy, I was pregnant with twins, and I was getting bigger by the day, and I would drop off my son at school, and one of his teachers asked him one day, "What are you having, a brother or a sister?" And he responded, as most 6-year-olds would, "Cousins." And it took some people by surprise, and so we decided that the best thing to do would be to kind of get everyone together and explain it. So he brought me for show and tell. And so my little guy stood up in front of a classroom of friends and parents and teachers, and in the sweetest little voice said, Auntie Melissa and Uncle Brian's love made the babies, but her tummy was broken, so Mommy and me are carrying them and taking care of them until they're ready to be born. And it was just that simple. Surrogacy explained by a 6-year-old.
Children are very accepting. My daughter was probably 5, and my youngest was 1 when I started. Midway through my pregnancy, my youngest was about 18 months. And if you asked him where, my friend was pregnant, if you asked him where her baby was, he would go to her belly and he would pat her belly. And if you asked him where my intended mom's baby was, he would look at her and he would look at me and he would come over and he would pat my belly. So at 18 months old, he knew this was not our baby.
I've been in both situations. I've been married and in committed relationships during surrogacies, and I've been single during surrogacies. This one, I'm single, I'm not in a relationship, and I have wonderful children and great friends, though, that are really supportive. And my little 5-year-old loves to read to him and rub lotion on my belly and get me ice chips, and so I don't really feel like I'm alone. But being single can make the surrogacy process legally a little bit easier, but it can be challenging for a surrogate when they're alone.
I was single for one, and then I was married through another. I actually was married when I started. At the end of the day, I'm completely confident in knowing that the right person is going to understand my passion and my desire behind surrogacy.
The first family I worked with, they were in Paris, because in Paris it's illegal.
I helped complete a family. They had 2 boys of their own, and the intended mother was diagnosed with MS. And so she was no longer able to carry a child of her own.
This is something that you're doing for somebody else, and you are intertwining your life and your lifestyle with someone else. And it's one of those things where you have to be cognizantly aware of the emotions that the family may be experiencing as well.
During a surrogate pregnancy, everything you do impacts this child, and it's profound. And sometimes that's difficult for the intended parents to lose that control. They don't know if you're really eating well and if you're really exercising well and doing the right things and not smoking and not drinking. So they have to have a level of trust in you. But having that little one fully dependent on you is, it's an important job.
And I don't take it personally, or I don't feel attacked when that intended parent, if they're worried to the point of where it seems like they're smothering or however they're lashing out, I know that the underlying reason and the underlying emotion is most likely due to them not knowing, to them just being a scared parent, being, concerned and wanting the best for their child at the end of the day, and wanting to know that they even made the right decision with selecting me as a surrogate. So it's all about building that trust. I do provide breast milk if it's something that the intended parents are interested in. One of my intended parents, I would ship the milk on dry ice, which was incredibly time consuming, and it wasn't the best or efficient way, I would say. So it can be challenging once the individuals go back and return to their homes.
This is the 4th family that I'll be helping, and I am currently 28 weeks pregnant with a little boy for an international father who is from Italy.
The last journey I had was for a single dad. Originally, it was something that I wasn't certain of, because I had always said, well, it's to help create families, And then I started thinking about it, and a family doesn't necessarily mean that it has to consist of 2 parents. One person can be just as good of a parent as having 2 individuals in the home. I think with him expressing the desire within him, not just with himself, but within his family as well, for him to be a dad, I figured why not? I'm definitely glad that I did, because even with seeing his reaction in the hospital when he was meeting his son, it was wonderful.
One of the questions that I get often from people is it difficult to give the baby up? They can't understand as a surrogate how we can go through a 9-month pregnancy and then give the baby up at the end. I really like to make sure people understand that as a surrogate, we are not giving the baby up, we're giving the baby back. Intended parents trust us with their most precious gift, which is their baby or babies. And they entrust us to carry that baby for 9 months and to nurture it and let it grow. And then we are grateful for the opportunity to give it back. Occasionally, there's some sadness related to the end of a pregnancy, which happens anyways. I get kind of attached to feeling them kick and having them inside. But there's no sadness when they go home. It's like gratitude. It's being grateful that we're able to help them. It's joy for them getting to bring a baby home.
When my first family left the hospital with the baby, just the way it worked out, they left a few hours before me. I cried, but I cried because I was so happy that they were leaving as a family.
It's hard to describe because I went through 9 months being pregnant with a baby that was not mine, but to push that baby out, go through all that pain and see the smile on that parent's face when they hold the baby for the first time, it's just, the feeling is just out of this world. It's a completely different feeling from you having your own child, but it's a warm feeling and it's a feeling that you have purpose. You didn't do it because someone forced you to, you just did it because it was a selfless act that you wanted to do to make someone else's life better.
It is totally addicting. Watching these couples become families that once it was only a dream, it's amazing. And people going into surrogacy thinking that they just want to help one family is so rare. Once you help one family and you hear somebody else's story, you're like, I want to help them too. I went into it thinking one and done. I thought maybe if they wanted a sibling, we might try again. We did. And then I was like, well, but I heard about this family and their story about how long they've struggled and how they've had failures, and you leave and you're like, oh my God, I have to do this 10 more times. If I could do it once a year, I would.
From the very beginning, I've been obsessed with pregnancy and birth. It's always been my dream to become a midwife, and I'm in graduate school now to make that happen. So I'm really excited to be on the other side of the table and to stop pushing out babies and start catching them instead. But I've always been in awe of a woman's body and the miracle of life, like straight down to the cellular level and all of the little things that have to happen in order for a baby's conception. It's just a beautiful, amazing process.
What I typically tell friends that are interested in my story is that surrogacy has given my life meaning. It's given me purpose, and it's not for everybody, but you know, when I do come across individuals that are eager and incredibly interested in my story and in learning, it's definitely something where I try to kind of expose them and give them insight, because if it worked for me, then it can work for them.
I drive school bus for a living, and I've been doing that for 10 years. So I basically love working with children, but also it lets me be a full-time mom and do the things that I need to do with my kids. God put me here to create 3 babies for families who couldn't create babies on their own. And I always think, I think people sit at home and they're like, why am I here? Why did God put me on this earth? And I kind of feel like this is my purpose, to be able to care for my kids and be able to carry kids for other people so that they can experience what I experience every day.